1, meaning we still have another electrostatics later on in our syllabus life. So electrostatics is one of the easiest topics that we are going to discuss right now. And later on, when you grow up, when you know what is physics very well, then we will discuss with you electrostatics 2 in Form 3. So anytime you meet a topic that has a 1 in it, it means 2 is on the way. For example, you will be learning about waves 1, meaning waves 2 is still coming. You learn about measurement 1, meaning measurement 2 is on the way in Form 2. So today I would like us to learn concerning electrostatics 1. And I'm going to break down what you are actually supposed to learn concerning this topic. We have 13 main objectives, which by the end of the topic, you are supposed to have known all of them. But I'm going to break it into 3 lessons. The first one is today, then the others will follow later on. So first of all, everyone should be knowing what is electrostatics. That is the first objective. Number 2, because electrostatics is a topic that is dealing with charges, you are supposed to be knowing the types of charges, then the origin of charge, and the units, what we call the SI unit of charge, and the law of charges. Those are some of the objectives we are supposed to know. Then we are supposed also to discuss concerning the different materials that becomes differently charged when wrapped. There are those that becomes positive and there are those that becomes negative when wrapped with a cloth or with air. So we are also going to see those materials. Then we look at charging methods. How can we charge a material? How can we charge a material? How can we charge it positively? How can we charge it negatively? Some of the things that we are supposed to be learning are those ones. Then now we have 3 methods that we are going to discuss, each one of them individually. We have induction, we have conduct, and we have separation methods, which we shall deal with each one of them separately. So meaning you need to follow up with the next lessons. After that, we look at the electroscope, and the kind of electroscope we are dealing with is an electroscope we call the cold leaf electroscope, simply because the leaf is made up or it is coated with cold. That's why we call it the cold leaf electroscope. Then we looked at the features of the electroscope, how it looks like, some functions of the parts or it has. Then after that, we looked at how can we charge electroscope. We have 2 methods that we can charge electroscope. We have conduct and induction. We don't have, the other one had 3 methods. In this case, we don't have separation method. So meaning we have only conduct and induction. Then after that, we look at the uses of electroscope. Very key. We have 4 uses which we shall be discussing as we are moving on with the lesson. We then look at the charges in air, because now the topic is all about the charges. We shall look at the charges in air and then what causes charges in air. We have 2 methods, but at your level, you're still here, we only check at 1 method in which air can get charged. Then after that, we looked at the application of electrostatic charges. It can be applied. We cannot learn about something. We cannot learn how to charge a material, how to, the various methods, then it becomes useless. No, there must be somewhere we are supposed to use it and better the life of a human being. So that is the applications. We shall look at the 3 main applications of electrostatic charges. Then lastly, we looked at the dangers of electrostatics. Though it has some usefulness, sometimes also it can bring some dangers. If not well handled, it can have some dangers. So that is, we shall look at all of them. But for today, we shall look at the first 6. If you've been writing the objectives of the topic, that's what we are going to look at this lesson. So again, there are some application questions that you need to be knowing. There are questions that you can be asked and you need to answer based on your knowledge on this topic. For example, at many times you've been asked a question, why is your shoes attracting a lot of dust when it is brushed? Why is the window panes or why is the windows attracting more dust when it is being wiped? Why, when you are removing a nylon cloth from your body, sometimes you hear and see some lights. You hear crackling sound, you see some lights. Those are the things that we are going to discuss here. All of them leaning on electrostatics. Remember, when you are looking at the branches of physics in your first topic, electrostatics was one of the branches. That's why we are dealing with it right now. I can just list what we are going to discuss right now in the next few minutes. Then we see your expectation. We are going to start with number one, definition of electrostatic. What is electrostatics? That's our objective number one. Number two, we look at the types of charges. We look at the types of charges. Number three, we look at the law. So first of all, we look at the origin of charge. Origin of charges. Then number four, we look at the law of charges. Law of charges. After looking at the law of charges, we look at the various materials, different materials, and then we end our first lesson, and then we again look forward to another lesson. So, definition of electrostatics. How is it being defined? Electrostatics has a very simple definition. It is the study of static charges. It is the study of static charges. Study of static charges. Study of static charges, which has two main characteristics. Static charges, they are non-moving charge. They are non-moving charge. At the same time, they are only found on the surface of materials. When you charge a material, the charges are only found at the surface, not inside the material. So they are, electrostatics is the study of static charges, which are non-moving charge and are only found at the surface of the materials. That is the definition of the electrostatics. Number two, types of charges. Types of charges. We have two main charges. We have positive charges, positive charge. Then we have negative charge. Positive charge. Then we have a negative charge. So those are the two types of charges. Then, origin of charges. Before we look at the law of charges, we can discuss about the origin of charges. Where are the charges originating from? In very simple terms, charges originate from the atom of a material. Remember, all the materials that exist in this world, they are made up of atoms. And you will still learn this later on, or maybe you've learned it, about the structure of the atom. If you have not learned about the structure of the atom, I can take a few seconds and show you how it is. An atom is perceived to be circular that way, with a nucleus at the center. So atom has three particles. We call it subatomic particles. It has what we call neutrons. It has what we call the protons, and then it has what we call electrons. These are the three subatomic particles found in the atom. Neutrons has no charge. Protons are positively charged. Electrons are negatively charged. So the one that is having no charge, we are not considering this when we are talking about the origin of charge, because number one, we have said it is not charged. So we remove now neutrons. So though neutrons are found at the nucleus, neutrons and protons are found at the nucleus. Then electrons are found outside the nucleus. So the space outside the nucleus of the structure of the atom is known as the energy level. So electrons are occupying the energy levels, but the protons and neutrons are found within the nucleus. But in this case, we are only considering the electrons and protons because of the main results that I've given out, they are the charges. I mean, they are the particles which are charged. Two particles which are charged are electrons and protons. Neutron has no charge, it is neutral. Neutron is neutral, so it's not participating here. Then, protons are positively charged and electrons are negatively charged. What does that mean? If a body has protons, it is said to be positively charged. If a body has electrons, it is said to be negatively charged. And there is this question that we normally ask in chemistry, that an atom is said to be electrically neutral. An atom is said to be electrically neutral. An atom is said to be electrically neutral. Why? Simply because the number of protons which are positively charged are equal to the number of electrons that are negatively charged, meaning the effect of positive and negative charges will cancel out. Then eventually the atom remains to be neutral. Now, when we say that an atom is not charged, it doesn't mean that the atom do not contain charges. It has both positive and negative, but at equal numbers. At equal numbers. But once we make some to be more, or once we make electrons to be more, the body becomes negatively charged. If we make protons to be more, the body becomes positively charged. So when I say this object or this book or this pen is positively charged, it doesn't mean that it does not contain electrons. It has, but they are lower than the protons. So if now with the two charges here that we have the protons and the electrons, the one that is more than the other one is going to take the name. Now the body is going to be said it is either positively charged or negatively charged. So remove the mentality that a body is positively charged if it only has protons. It has all of them. It's only protons which or that are more than the electrons. That is it. So that is the origin of charge. Charges originate from the atom. You know, in chemistry, when the atom gains or loses electrons, it forms what we call ions. It forms ions. So ions and charges are two words that are very close. The difference is very narrow between the two of them. But I can tell you, a charged atom is known as ion. When an atom is charged, it is known as an ion. So that is actually what is in place. So a charged atom is known as ion. So now, a body, now this knowledge is where now the physics will borrow knowledge from chemistry. An atom will never gain or lose protons. It only gains or lose electrons. And that's what we are going even to consider here. It cannot lose electrons, then lose protons. No, it is only electrons that are being lost or being gained. In chemistry, it depends with what we call electronic configuration, such that there are elements that can gain electrons, others will lose. The one that gains electrons will become negatively charged, or they form negatively charged ions. The ones that loses, when the electrons are being lost, then it means now protons will be more. Remember, before it gains or loses electrons, the number of protons and electrons are equal. But once electrons are gained, now electrons become more than the protons, and the object or the body becomes negatively charged. When electrons are being lost, the protons remain constant. Then by the end of the day, the protons are more than the electrons. Meaning what? The body is going to be positively charged. So that is it. So in this entire topic, you will never hear me say that the protons were gained or protons were lost. They can't. They will never be lost. So if you say that the protons are lost or they are gained, now you will be teaching yourself, because you will be talking about things that no one has ever mentioned. You want to invent your own other things. So what is there is, it is electrons that can be gained or lost. Now, some bodies, when they are being wrapped, you know, when you take a roller and you wrap using your hair, it will start picking some small objects on the floor. It can pick some dust, it can pick some small pieces of papers, simply because the roller is charged. Now, I will tell you whether that roller is positively or negatively charged, depending on what I'm going to explain right now. We have objects that can gain electrons when being rubbed with another object. For example, when you rub using a cloth, we have objects that gain electrons. We have those that will lose electrons. The ones that will gain electrons will become negatively charged. The one that will lose electrons will become positively charged. So a body becomes positively charged by losing electrons. A body would become negatively charged by gaining electrons. Remember, there is no anywhere I have mentioned protons being gained or lost. So it's what determines the charge in a body is electrons that can either be gained or lost. So that is it. Now, the one that gains electrons becomes negatively charged, and I will give you examples of them. Now we are in materials here, our last objective of the day. The one that gains electrons, when they gain electrons, it simply means they will become negatively charged. They will become negatively charged. So they include, I will give you two or three. Then you can go and search for more if you are interested in knowing more. We have number one, we have what we call a plastic. We have plastic. We have polyethylene. This one is learned in organic chemistry. Then we have another one known as eponites. We have eponite. Those three, when you wrap them, you always use a silk cloth or any other type of a cloth, or even air, or human or a wool. Anything that you can wrap them, they will gain electrons, hence becoming positively, hence becoming negatively charged. Then we have these others that loses electrons. That loses electrons. And when they lose electrons, they become positively charged. They become positively charged. Now, can we look at the examples of them? Remember, this one, polyethylene is a special plastic. Eponine is also a special plastic. So it's just like a family. Now here, we have a glass. Like the window pane there. It is one of the materials that they lose electrons, hence become positively charged when they are being wrapped. Then we have another one known as perspex. We have perspex. Then we have acetate. We have acetate. So those three are examples of the one that lose electrons, hence becoming positively charged. So, having that knowledge of this, that is just the introduction part of it. Still, we shall now be looking at the charging methods. You just look at the next video and you will be able to follow up for a series of lessons. I take this chance to thank you for watching me. Blessings.